Welcome to the fourth annual Trial Lawyer Section Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg Vanguard Award and CLE program. This program is co-sponsored by the Trial Lawyer Section, the Torts Insurance and Compensation Law Section, the Committee on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and the Committee on Continuing Legal Education of the New York State Bar Association. This program will run from 4:30 until 6 p.m. During the program, please take note of any verification codes that are displayed and announced, as you will enter these codes in your learning dashboard for your CLE certificate at the end of the program. Please do not ask for or post the code in the chat. Doing so could result in the program losing its accreditation. Instructions on how to access the learning dashboard are available in the webinar information email that you received earlier today. Please note that you must remain online for the duration of the program to receive MCLE credit for your participation. Please be sure you have logged on using your full name so that we can match your login to the attendance roster. Our panelists welcome questions, so if you would like to pose a question to the panelists, please use the Q&A box in the Zoom portal, not the chat box. Now, it is my pleasure to turn the program over to Angelique Moreno, who is the Vice Chair of the Trial Lawyers Section, as well as Co-Chair of the Committee on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion of the Trial Lawyers Section. Angelique.
Thank you, Gina. It is my pleasure to introduce the Chair of the Trial Section of the New York State Bar Association, Christian Soller. As many of you know, Christian is an accomplished litigator and has earned a reputation of being fair, honest, smart, diligent, and an outstanding strategist. On a personal note, I would share with you that Christian works very hard every day on making diversity a foundational value of our trial section. He strongly believes that the success of our section lies in fostering an environment that embraces differences, promotes equality, and engenders mutual respect. I'd love to turn over the program to Christian.
Well, Christian, you muted yourself somehow.
Yes, I'm sorry. Welcome, everybody, and thank you very much, Angelique, for the very kind words. I feel compelled just to mention right off the bat that Angelique is the founder of this terrific annual event, and we are now 4 years running. Achieving diversity in the legal profession remains a stubborn problem. To overcome that problem, we need to keep talking about it, asking the tough questions, and hearing the inspiring stories of people from diverse backgrounds who face challenges as a result of those backgrounds, but nevertheless persevered. To that end, we have a great group of speakers here today to share their stories, the good and the bad, to learn from and apply the lessons therein going forward in order to keep chipping away at diversifying our profession. But before we hear from them, I just want to mention a couple of very exciting events that our section has coming up. On Saturday, November 4th, we are holding a NYSBA Trial Lawyer Section Membership Appreciation Day at the beautiful Equinox Hotel in Manchester, Vermont. All are welcome. The goal of that event is very simple. It's just to gather as many of us as possible to mingle, network, and get to know one another, with the exception of just getting there and paying for your own discounted hotel room. All expenses will be paid for in terms of food, activities. So it promises to be a terrific event, and I encourage you to please try to get there. And from November 30th to December 2nd, just about when we'll all start to be getting tired of the cold weather in the Northeast, although it's hard to imagine on a day like today, the trial lawyer section is gathering with the Tickle section. For those of you who don't know, that's Torts Insurance Compensation Law section in Hammock Beach, Florida, to co-sponsor a great CLE program featuring a program on diversity, ethics, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, tips from the bench, and more. We have a great group of speakers, including judges, that we are pulling together for that event. So please consider attending that one too, and checking a bunch of boxes in doing so. CLE, networking, some relaxation on the beautiful beaches of Florida's Palm Coast for a nice little mini warm weather vacation. Thank you, everybody. And Angelique, I turn it back to you.
Thank you. I have to be honest, I can't say enough about one of my favorite people ever. Judge Silver is a person who embraces change and absolutely loves new challenges. I had the pleasure of meeting Judge Silver as an adversary. I can only describe him as a fierce advocate in the courtroom, but always friend and gentleman to all. After achieving great success in private practice, Judge Silver had a growing desire to dedicate himself to public service. He then took on a new challenge, serving the public as a judge. Judge Silver took on every assignment with gusto, whether it was the motor vehicle part, the trial assignment part, the early settlement med-mal part, or eventually becoming the Deputy Chief Administrative Judge of New York City Courts. You could always find Judge Silver revving to go and eager to be part of the solution. After retiring from the court system in 2021, you may have thought that Judge Silver would slow it down just a little bit, but on the contrary, he decided to embark on an entire new chapter and started a mediation company with the goal in mind of helping parties find a mutual resolution. Somehow, in all this, he also finds the time to continue to serve the public by chairing the Mayor's Advisory Committee on the Judiciary. But Judge Silver's many accomplishments and achievements are not only what makes him loved and respected by so many. Justice Silver has always believed in helping and encouraging others. He is a mentor. He practices every day the art of inclusion. He encourages others to think big, to live boldly and brilliantly. It is my pleasure, my absolute pleasure, to introduce the Honorable Judge Silver.
Angelique, thank you for those amazing words. Like, I usually know I'm not at a loss for words, but thank you. Thank you for those extraordinary words. And thank you for being who you are in organizing this. And I want to thank Christian and everyone involved in the organizing of this great event and how important it is. I also want to congratulate my co-keynote speaker, Judge Ogden, a dear friend for many years. And of course, all the other honorees and people on the panel, Judge Karoulis, Judge Barros, who unfortunately can't be here, Judge Ali, and of course, we have Charles Small, who's the chief clerk, and of course, one of my favorites, who I work with all the time, Ayanna Soret, executive director of the Mayor's Advisory Committee. I am so deeply honored to be here today to share my story with you. My life, from where I've lived to where I've traveled, has been deeply rooted in my humble origins growing up in the Bronx, where ambition echoes through the streets just as loudly as the cheers of the Yankees. When I was younger, I navigated through the halls of public schools, soaking in the vibrant culture of our beloved city, and of course, my beloved borough. Yes, I was a true Bronxite, and that upbringing, riddled with its challenges and triumphs, laid the foundation for my adventurous path since then. My parents, the bedrock of my journey, instilled in me and my sister the values of hard work, determination, and an unwavering sense of justice. They were my first teachers, shaping my character and influencing the choices I would make throughout my life. Growing up in the Bronx, they emphasized the importance of education and encouraged my thirst for knowledge. Their sacrifices and dedication inspired me to strive for excellence, ultimately propelling me toward higher education at New York University. It was their unwavering support that gave me the confidence to embark on this academic journey after I graduated the halls of Christopher Columbus High School on Pelham Parkway. At New York University, I dived into the world of numbers, earning my MS in accounting and management, but my love for justice made me set my sights beyond the world of accounting and management. Ultimately, it was Hofstra Law School that called my name, and with the blessings of my family, I answered. Fueled by determination to succeed, I earned my JD in 1983. But I didn't stop there. I decided to double down on my academic pursuits by venturing into the realm of finance and seeking an MBA at NYU Stern of Graduate School of Business in 1992. In the early days of practice, I was a legal multitasker, balancing a full-time role as in-house counsel for not one, not two, but 5 private bus companies in Queens, Yes, I could argue in the courtroom and negotiate bus routes simultaneously, a true feat. Eventually, I found my legal home at Fields and Rosen, a firm that became Fields, Silver and Santo, LLP, and it was there I delved into maritime law, real estate, personal injury, and continued to handle matters for the bus companies. Through the years, I was fortunate to achieve in my legal pursuits, eventually becoming an equity partner. But while achieving such legal suits, I never lost sight of my community and the importance of giving back. Just as my parents had always reminded me that when I was a little boy growing up in the Bronx. Throughout my career, my parents' wisdom has been a beacon, guiding me through the complexities of life and law. They taught me that success is not measured by achievements, but the positive impact we have on the lives of others. So in 2004, I found myself swept into the whirlwind of public service as the voters in New York City chose to elect me to civil court. Initially, I was assigned to civil court in Kings County. Then, in a twist of fate, I returned to the borough that raised me, finding myself reassigned to family court in Bronx County, handling juvenile delinquency cases, presiding over matters involving a new generation of young people in the borough that raised me and that I love so much. Then in January of 2010, I was appointed a Supreme Court judge by designation, stepping into the grand arena of New York County. There I presided over 2,000 motor vehicle cases, navigating the traffic of justice, as I like to say. From 2011 to 2015, I worked my way through the trial assignment part in Supreme Court, New York County. In 2012, I was elected to the Supreme Court of the state of New York. That same year, I added to my responsibilities and took on the mantle of negotiating early settlements of medical malpractice cases. In October of 2015, I was summoned again, this time to preside over a newly created mediation part called JMed. It felt a bit like a ringmaster in a legal circus, with the med-mal one day and an IS part thrown in on the plate for good measure. Then, July 2017 marked a grand promotion. Chief Judge DeFiore saw fit to make me the Deputy Chief Administrative Judge for the New York City courts. Suddenly, I was the conductor of the day-to-day court operations, orchestrating the legal ensemble across the city. As part of that role, I was intent on proving the functions of all the courts across New York City. I dabbled in the role of administrative judge in New York County. Then I did a tour of the boroughs, interim administrative judge for the Bronx, and then interim administrative judge in Queens for a short stint. It would, one say, a judicial world tour. And through it all, I was fortunate to preside over the courts at a time when we saw dramatic decreases in caseloads and trials delays. I was also fortunate to have been at the helm during a time when the courts made a grand pivot towards embracing the virtues of alternative dispute resolution, so that disputes that had previously taken years to resolve could now be resolved in a matter of days and weeks. Then 2020 threw us a curveball when the pandemic swept across the globe, shifting progress and challenging the very core of our New York City court system. Suddenly, almost overnight, the pandemic threatened to make the halls of justice grow silent. Courtrooms that once buzzed with activities had to adapt to virtual operations. The very fabric of our legal landscape faced an unprecedented test, a test that would measure not just our resilience, but also our adaptability. One thing that made me most proud of the time as a DCAJ of the New York City courts was the fact that the court system never stopped moving. We never stood still. The wheels of justice may have slowed down, but we did not waver. Delays became inevitable, and the meticulous progress we had painstakingly made over the years faced a temporary halt. The pandemic had pressed the pause button on many aspects of our life, and the legal realm was no exception. But amid the challenges we faced, we found a renewed determination, a determination to keep the flame of justice burning brightly. We embraced technology like never before, turning virtual proceedings to keep court systems operational. Judges, attorneys, and litigants adapted to a new normal, appearing on screens rather than in person. And the pandemic, with its unprecedented challenges, it also urged us to innovate, to evolve, and to forge ahead with resilience. The setbacks became setups for comebacks, and the pandemic a catalyst for change. As we continue to navigate these uncharted waters, I hope that none of us forget the lessons learned during those trying times. Let us harness the power of technology, the spirit of adaptability, and the resilience of our justice system to emerge stronger, more efficient, and compassionate than ever before. From the hearts of justice knows no bounds. As we forge ahead, we do so with an unwavering commitment to serve the people, to uphold the law, and to triumph over adversity. That journey continues, and we are steadfast in our resolve to ensure justice. Another challenge that I faced, and this one has been constant through my life, is the challenge of navigating this world as an openly gay man. And my career as a gay judge within those legal landscapes, I have faced a set of hurdles and prejudices, particularly early on in my pursuits. As a gay man, the road to success was often less traveled, sometimes rocky, but always illuminating. In a world where acceptance and understanding are still evolving, I encountered moments of bias and discrimination. It was a reminder that the battle for equality is far from over, and the legal profession is no exception. I faced stereotypes and misconceptions, sometimes subtle, sometimes blatant, that sought to undermine my abilities and credibility. Yet in facing these challenges, I found strength and resilience. I stood tall, determined to dispel prejudices through competence, compassion, and a dedication to justice that knows no boundaries. It is a testament to the progress we've made as society, but also a reminder of the work that remains. Being a gay judge has not only shaped my legal journey, but has given me a unique perspective, an understanding of the importance of inclusiveness and the power of breaking barriers. It's a reminder that diversity in all forms is the cornerstone of a just and fair society. And now, after years of navigating the labyrinth of the judicial system, I find myself in a new chapter. As I lay my gavel to rest, I have found fresh purpose, a purpose that resonates with the very essence of harmony and resolution. In retirement from the bench, I have found a new calling through the founding of Silver Star Mediation and Arbitration, and have traded the courtroom stage for the table of conciliation and compromise. I also have a newfound role as Mayor Adams appointed me chair of the Mayor's Judiciary Committee, where we have a strong commitment to a diversity of judges on the bench. Beyond my delivering verdicts from the bench, I have now found my life imbued with life as a take on the hands-on approach by bringing disputing parties to this table and guiding them to middle ground. Through mediation, I have witnessed the transformation of conflict into consensus, acrimony into amicability. The satisfaction of seeing feuding parties find a path forward, shaking hands with newfound understanding is unparalleled. At the end of the day, my life has taken me through many doors. But one thing I have never forgotten is the fact that true fulfillment often lies in embracing change and reinventing oneself. As I look back on my journey, I am filled with gratitude for the years on the bench, for the challenges, and for the chance to continue to serving society in different capacities. It's a reminder that our paths can take unexpected turns, leading us to places where our skills and compassions find new and meaning purpose. Through all that I have done, one thing has remained crystal clear: the importance of public service, the privilege of serving the great people of the state of New York, striving for justice, and occasionally cracking a legal joke or two, which I've been known to do. It's what keeps the wheels of democracy turning. And let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a ride that I wouldn't give up for anything. In the tapestry of life, and what my grandmother always used to say is Manchen Planik and Guten Lach. The Yiddish proverb, man plans and God laughs at you, encapsulates the essence of our journeys, how we plan, how we strive, and yet life unfolds in unexpected and surprising ways beyond our expectations and predictions. As I stand you before today, reflecting on my story, my legal career, and my unforeseen twist that led me to where I am now, I'm reminded of the wisdom held in that proverb. Thank you for letting me share this moment for you. May your paths be guided with resilience, adaptability, and the yuba to laugh along with unpredictable dance of life. Thank you.
Judge Silver, thank you. You certainly never disappoint. And I'm sure none of us have any doubt that you're going to be just as amazing in your new role as you have been in your prior roles over the years.
Thank you.
Okay, it is my privilege to introduce our next keynote speaker, the Honorable Jeanette Ogden. Justice Jeanette Ogden began her judicial career with her appointment to the Buffalo City Court in June of 1995. In November of 1995, Justice Ogden was elected to serve a 10-year term on the Buffalo City Court and re-elected to serve another 10-year term in 2005. In January 2001, Justice Ogden was appointed as an acting county court judge. The appointment was expanded to acting Erie County Family Court judge in January 2002. That appointment to the Erie County Family Court gave her the distinction of being the first African-American woman to serve as a family court judge in Western New York. She was elected to the New York State Supreme Court in 2014 and appointed to the New York State Supreme Court Appellate Division 4th Department Judicial Department in November 2022. Justice Ogden has developed a reputation as a no-nonsense judge because of her firm but fair handling of thousands of criminal and civil cases. She has, prior to Justice Ogden's judicial appointment, she worked as a trial lawyer for Cigna insurance companies, defending corporations, school districts, hospitals, municipalities, while at the same time operating her own private general law practice. She's also a former prosecutor with the Erie County District Attorney's Office and a former assistant Erie County attorney. She has a bunch of professional affiliations, which I encourage you to look at the attachments that come with the program to see all of those, because they're all impressive and it's amazing she does everything that she does. Her community memberships include the Erie County College Criminal Justice Advisory Council, the Women's Group, the NAACP, and the Advisory Council to the Board of Directors of the United Way of Buffalo and Erie County. And last, I just want to mention in terms of her community involvement, as if all of that isn't enough, she serves as a mentor to high school, college, and law students. She regularly appears as a speaker for civic and community organizations, public schools, and churches. And I love this part. Her message and her motto is "Lift as you climb." Judge Ogden, I hope that you received the award that we sent you just as a token of our appreciation for your gracious willingness to appear and say some words today. Against that backdrop, I pass the baton to you. Thank you, Justice Ogden.
Well, I'd like to thank you and the Trial Lawyers Association for giving me this award, and I certainly am honored to receive it with the Honorable Judge George Silver, who to me is a very, very special person. And although I'd also like to acknowledge everyone on the panel. And I'm honored to be able to participate with all of you, because coming from way up here in Buffalo, I don't get that opportunity very often. So I've been asked to share my story in 10 minutes. And you just gave most of it as part of my bio. But let me just say, I was raised by a single parent, my mother, in a high crime, low income housing project in Buffalo. I was told that we were poor folks. So I began my educational career at a Buffalo public school, which was attended by low income Black families and low to middle class white families. My mom suffered from a mental illness. And so in the second grade, I attended school in Lexington, Virginia, which is the home of the Virginia Military Institute. And the school was segregated. And even though Brown versus the Board of Education had been decided almost 10 years earlier, apparently they had not gotten that message. But there in Lexington, I learned about my history, I learned about racism, and I learned about equity. Most importantly, I learned to not let everything that comes to your mind come out of your mouth. I implemented that lesson many times when I returned to Buffalo and throughout my life. I learned to overcome obstacles at a very early age. And the onset of my mother's illness occurred when she was in her 3rd year at Morgan State College in Maryland, and it prevented her from getting her degree. So as a result, she stressed the importance of education, and all of her children have college degrees. I was also taught as a child that I had to work twice as hard to get half as far as my white peers. Then in high school, the lesson changed, and I was taught that I had to work twice as hard because I came from a low-income family. So I was introduced to discrimination, but more importantly, I was introduced to class discrimination. Out of all of that, I learned the moral of the story is you have to work hard. And that is what I did. I learned also that coming from a low-income family means that you are economically deprived. You are not poor, and there is power in words. So in undergraduate school, I learned that nobody pulls themselves up by their own bootstraps. Somebody helps them get up, and then when they get up, they have to help someone else. I also learned to take advantage of opportunities that existed that allow people to improve their economic and social status. And I did that. I took advantage of those programs. And when I graduated from undergraduate school, the one lesson that I learned most was that I have a responsibility to give back to those who were equally as entitled as I was to an opportunity. So from there, that is where I developed my message and my motto to lift as you cry. And with that foundation, I graduated from undergraduate school, and then I worked for a couple years for a New York State Assemblyman named Arthur Eve. And I worked in Governor Hugh Carey's constituent complaint office. And there I enjoyed helping people, helping them to solve their problems with government. And it was there that I was encouraged to go to law school. So I applied to law school, and I got into Columbia. I got into Cornell, but I didn't get into UB. And I was devastated because I couldn't go to Columbia. I couldn't go to Cornell. I still couldn't afford that, even though I'd been working. And finally, I got into UB. So that was my, UB is the University of Buffalo, and that was my Ivy League school, because that was the only place that at that time, with my socioeconomic status, by then I was divorced, so that's where I had to go. And I did. And I went there, and from there, I graduated, I passed the bar, and I joined the district attorney's office as an assistant district attorney. And the district attorney, who was a federal court judge these days, was very concerned that I would be able to perform the job. He was concerned because of my background. He didn't know whether I would be tough enough or whether I would be easy on crime. And he told me that. And I told him that I was sure that I could do that job. And that is what I did. And I was very grateful that he had given me that opportunity. And so in addition to becoming an assistant district attorney, I became a mentor to law students who were interested in pursuing a career in criminal law. From there, I handled cases on every level. And after that, I was assigned to handle violent felony offenses. I did that. And then I transferred to the county attorney's office because that was civil. And at that time, the county had a hospital. And the hospital, I learned how to be a medical malpractice attorney. But in becoming an attorney, I was given the opportunity to sit with other very superb trial lawyers who were representing the various doctors, since I was only representing the hospital. I was also assigned to represent the highway department. So I handled loads and loads of personal injury liability cases, automobile actions, and sometimes I did some contracts. I did some bond counsel work when necessary. But from there, I was given an opportunity to work for Cigna Insurance Company, and so I did insurance defense. And Cigna gave me the opportunity to do insurance defense work, not only locally in Buffalo, but they often sent me other places. And I would apply pro hoc vice to go to different places and try the cases. And I relished that opportunity. But what I also did was learn how to rely on old lessons, because I was mistaken for the secretary. I was called a little girl. I was called sweetie. I was called honey. My case wasn't called until last because they said they didn't realize that I was the lawyer, even though I had on a suit and a briefcase and had checked in with the court clerk. So what I did was to become a mentor to law students and help them to come into the court so that they would know to check in with the court clerk, so that they would understand that their cases shouldn't be called last. And more importantly, so that they would understand that you cannot worry about someone else's perception of you. Be the best person that you can be. And you can overcome that. And in time, they will accept you because of that, because they'll realize that you are not going to be fazed and you never, ever, ever speak out of anger. So in 1995, I was appointed to the Buffalo City Court. And I was appointed in June instead of January because my predecessor had become a federal court magistrate. And then I had to run, and I was elected to the Buffalo City Court in 1995. I had started in the Buffalo City Court as an assistant district attorney, so it was like coming back home. And I worked as an assistant district attorney there. Now I was the judge. In 2001, I was appointed as an acting county court judge, and I handled criminal defense cases. Well, I handled criminal trials of all nature. And then I was appointed as an acting Erie County Family Court judge 1 year later. And then what they would do would be to loan me out to other areas throughout the 8th Judicial District, which is the 8 counties that comprise Western New York. And I would travel to these different places, and sometimes people would be mean to me, and other times they would not be mean to me. But I would never give anyone the satisfaction of thinking that they could get to me. I would always do the very best that I could do. And then in 2014, I was elected to the state Supreme Court. I had run and lost 2 times before, but I didn't allow the politics of personal destruction to get in the way of what my goal was. So I became a Supreme Court judge, and I was given an opportunity to come down to the New York City area, to the Judicial Institute, to participate in a panel at the JI, teaching other young judges about trial practice. And there I met Judge George Silver, who had a wealth of experience, who was kind to me, not mean to me, and who allowed me to call upon him and ask questions, just in general, about being a Supreme Court judge. Because although you sit on all these other benches, there's always something different. And between Buffalo and New York City, it's not just a vast area, but it's a world of difference. So his allowing me to ask those questions meant so much. That was so invaluable. And from that, I learned that throughout my life and my legal career, there have always been people who are willing to help me. And that is why it is extremely important that I be willing to help others. Now, I had a mentor who was Justice Green, who was an appellate division judge, who mentored me. And I had a mentor named Judge Betty Ellerin, who had also met when I was joined the Women's Judges Association. Yet she mentored me, and I think she knew everyone in the entire state. So that was also beneficial because it also gave me, again, a different perspective. And so today, I am honored to accept an award with Judge Silver. But more importantly, I'm honored because I'm given the award for being a mentor and being an advocate to help others. And I would say that I would like to show my gratitude and my appreciation by continuing to be the best mentor and advocate that I can be. And now in my role as an appellate judge, I will continue to advocate for justice through the art of persuasion of my colleagues, one case at a time. So thank you very much for including me in this program today, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Judge Ogden. You know, so many of the things that you said touch and speak to me. You know, I also grew up in the housing projects of the South Bronx, not too far where Judge Silver went to high school. And, you know, we all have similar stories about what it takes to get to where we are. And it seems to me optimism, mentorship, friendship, fellowship are all keys to having a successful career. If I may, everyone, I am just now going to introduce everyone to our panelists, and we have such an amazing panelist. We have Justice Deborah Karoulounis. Forgive me for mispronouncing that, Judge. She is the administrative judge of the 5th Judicial District. She is a strong believer in the benefit of participating in bar associations. To name a few of her leadership roles, Judge Karoulounis was the president of the Central New York Women's Bar Association, president of the Association of Justices of the Supreme Court of the state of New York. She is the presiding member of the judicial section of the New York State Bar Association, a member of the board of directors of the Onondaga County Bar Association, and a trustee of the Onondaga County Bar Foundation. We have with us today Judge Shah Ali. He is the supervising judge to New York County Civil Court, making him the first South Asian supervising judge, or for that matter, South Asian in any administrative role in New York State history. He is also the president of the Asian American Judges Association of New York, a statewide association advocating for the inclusion and advancement of Asian American judges in our state court system. We also have with us Attorney Charles Small, who is the Chief Clerk for Civil Matters in Kings County. Attorney Smalls is the first minority appointed to the position of Chief Clerk in Kings County as a Chief Clerk. Mr. Small is the highest ranking non-judicial employee in his court. He's responsible for the management of court operations, the deployment of non-judicial personnel, and he works so tightly with RAJ here in Brooklyn and the Office of Court Administration in developing court policy, administrative structure, uniform procedures, and new programs. And we have the wonderful attorney, Ayana Surratt. Ms. Surratt is the executive director of the Mayor's Advisory Committee on the Judiciary. As ED, Ms. Surratt holds a vital role in vetting and nominating appointments and reappointments to the New York City Criminal Court and New York City Family Court, as well as interim appointments to New York City Civil Court. Attorney Surratt is also a former Manhattan DA and ADA, and more recently a senior fellow at Columbia University Center for Justice. Regrettably, the Honorable Betsy Barros, Associate Justice of the New York State Supreme Court Appellate Division, Second Department, she's unable to join us today as a panelist. She's not feeling well, but sends everyone here today her regards and her congratulations to our award recipient, Attorney David Tang. Christian, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Angelique. Judge Karolounis, we're going to start with you and just pose the question, does diversity matter in the legal profession?
Okay, thank you, Christian, and thank you, Angelique and Katie and Gina, for putting together this program. I'm honored to serve with these extraordinary jurists, my good friends and colleagues, Judge George Silver, Jeanette Ogden, and Shah Ali, and to have had the pleasure in preparation for this program to meet and learn about the remarkable journeys of Christian Small and Ayanya Surratt. Somebody spoke a little bit earlier about, mentorships and friendships. And I'm just going to say out loud here, the involvement, the organizations that I have been in have served as the basis for me to get to know well Judge Silver, Jeanette Ogden, Shah Ali. It's really a vital part of forming relationships and helping people. And so I'm just grateful that I'm a part of this panel. So to answer your question, though, Christian, yes, of course, diversity matters in the legal profession, just as it does in all professions and in all spheres of life. Diversity promotes creativity, empathy, and innovation through a robust exchange of perspectives and experiences. When we're members of a group that includes others who don't look or sound or think like us, we're forced to slow down and we're required to listen harder, and that means we listen better. But diversity alone is not enough, right? Diversity without concomitant equality and inclusion is meaningless. When we're treated fairly in an inclusive culture, a sense of belonging is created. And when you feel like you belong, when you feel like you're treated equitably, when you're valued, you work harder and you work better, and everybody wins.
Thank you, Judge. Will you be kind enough to share your journey, including some of the challenges that you faced over the course of your career?
Sure. So I entered law school in 1979. I can't see who's a participant or who's watching this program, but I'm guessing that was long before many of you were born. At the time, I believe there were about 40% of the law school was female. Notwithstanding my gender or the fact that I was married in law school or that I became a mom in law school, I never felt less than or excluded. And this is back in 79 to 82, right? I participated in moot court and journal. I was active in the women's law students group. I was offered a position as a research assistant my second year and a teaching assistant my third year. All was good in law school, right? My first job out of law school, I was a federal clerk with the then Chief Judge Howard Munson in the Northern District of New York. I was one of 3 law clerks, 2 women and 1 male, and Judge Munson treated us all equally. We had the same work, the same relationships, the same camaraderie, and all was good there too. From there, I joined a large firm in Syracuse where I stayed for 20 years. Was everything perfect? No, but my firm was no different than other firms and no worse than other law firms at that time. Law firms then were not diverse and they were not inclusive. And when I say that, I don't mean to suggest that they are really diverse and inclusive now, but it's much better. In a firm of over 150 lawyers, I was just the second woman to join the litigation department. but I joined after the first had left. So for a long time, I was just the one and only. And I was also just the second woman to make partner, and the first woman to make partner who had a family. I don't want to mislead or mistake. The firm recognized the importance of diversity, but not all the individual members of the firm did. And I think that's the problem that we still face today, right? And it occasionally showed up in the lack of inclusiveness and in unequal treatment. There were, for example, partners who wouldn't ask me to go out to lunch or ask me to go out for drinks after work or to attend client meetings because they were uncomfortable or because their spouses wouldn't approve. There were lawyers who wouldn't assign work to me because, as I was told, the client wanted a male lawyer. But the opposite was also true. I can remember one occasion when a male client was accused of sexual misconduct against a child. And so for a better optic in front of the jury, I was tasked with his representation, and I was dinged when I refused. The struggle for me in private practice was not the lack of diversity. It was the lack of equality or inclusion that I sometimes felt, particularly as my family grew. You know, I don't want to make it sound worse than it was, because it wasn't. Fortunately, that was not the norm in the firm. Most members of the firm believed in equity and inclusion. Indeed, I had several wonderful mentors. Jack D, who's now deceased, but he was the top of the list. They were partners who saw me not as a lady lawyer, but as a lawyer, and partners who gave me great work and trusted me with their clients and treated me as an equal. As times changed and women continued to outperform men in law school, the firm got better. And obviously it did. I stayed for 20 years and I had a wonderful overall experience with my firm. But part of the journey, as Justice Ogden was saying, we have to lift people up too. So I was instrumental in helping the firm enhance equity and inclusion by developing work-life policies for lawyers, women and men who had families. We created a maternity leave policy, which we didn't have when I started. We created a paternity leave policy, which nobody ever took while I was there. And we created workable part-time and flexible time policies. And what I really enjoyed is when the number of women in the firm exceeded 10, we formed a group and we called ourselves the Double Digits. And we regularly hosted our own parties and social events. Women succeeded at the firm, but I believe we had to work harder and better than our male counterparts. And though I loved my firm, and I really did, notwithstanding the challenges, my lifelong dream was to be a judge. So after 20 years at the firm, I began exploring judicial opportunities. And I applied to be the first female magistrate judge in the Northern District of New York. That didn't happen. A male who also happened to be incredibly competent was selected. And a few years later, I sought to become a New York State Supreme Court justice. Now, there were two women who had been Supreme Court justices in the 5th Judicial District before me, but neither one of them was still in office when I was elected. Although my gender did prove to be an issue for some in the political party that I ran on, fortunately, the head of my party had 2 daughters, and he believed in women and he believed in me. And so with his help and the help of many others, I was fortunate to get the nomination and then to get elected. I credit my electoral success in part with things other than merit. For example, one voter said he was going to vote for me because he liked the movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding. I didn't tell him I wasn't Greek. Another person said she was going to vote for me because she loved what was then a popular show, Judging Amy. I guess the world saw the benefit of having female judges before the legal profession did. So was everything easy for me when I became a judge? No, you don't change a culture overnight. I remember stories from one female judge who preceded me by less than 10 years. She said she was prohibited from entering the chambers of one of the male judges. While a woman could be found in the city court and in the family court, Supreme Court was still primarily off limits for women in the 5th Judicial District. And if you looked around the courthouse, all the walls were lined with pictures of white men. For me, even though I was a commercial litigator with zero matrimonial experience upon election in 2002, I was assigned to the matrimonial part for 2 years. The 2 male judges elected in the year following me were not. One served 1 year, the other didn't serve at all. In those early days, I had trouble getting equipment from time to time, use of a conference room, my name on the door to my office, and I wasn't assigned to chair important 5th Judicial District court committees. In fact, I was assigned to only one important committee, the 5th Judicial District Women in the Courts Committee, because of course that was a woman's job. In recent years, things have gotten immensely better. I feel included. I feel treated as an equal. The number of women on the bench in the 5th District has grown. In Supreme Court, we have 3 female judges in Oneida County. And in 2021, I was joined for the first time by a female colleague in Supreme Court in Onondaga County. And then fortunately, in July 2023, I became the first female administrative judge of the 5th Judicial District, joining only one other female administrative judge outside of New York City, Ann Minahan in the 9th District. Baby steps, but those steps are getting bigger every day, and we're moving in the right direction.
Great. Okay, thanks, Judge Karalunas. I do have one more question to the extent that you haven't covered it already. I mean, you certainly, you have a pattern of trailblazing that you demonstrated at your private practice with being the first woman and partner in the litigation department and partner in the firm. And, clearly you followed the same path during your judicial career, but how did you overcome the challenges to become the first female administrative judge for the 5th Judicial District?
So I think I credit my successes to a few things. Like, first of all, women like the judge for whom this program was named, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, right? Another person is Kathy Richardson. She was the first female partner at my firm, and she also happened to be the second female president of DISBA. I credit Wabosny and my chapter, the Central New York Women's Bar Association. And if I had to pick one individual, that individual would be Karen DeCrow. Karen DeCrow fought tirelessly for equality, and she knew that for women to have an equal place in the law, we needed not only to change our perception of women's roles, but we needed also to change our perception and expectation of men's roles in the workplace and in the home. And I also credit my successes to perseverance, my faith, which had me turn my cheek many, many, many times, my work ethic, my involvement in leadership in various bar and judicial associations, my passion for the law. I think also my willingness to speak up and out, even against prevailing thought on diversity, inclusion, and equality. and ways to improve justice for all. And perhaps most importantly, with respect to the current role that I'm in, I credit our new judicial administration, an administration that values independent thought, is concerned with improving delivery of justice, and that faithfully promotes diversity, equity, and inclusion. I am thankful that this administration entrusted me with the position that I serve as administrative judge. I love this new challenge, and all is good.
Thank you for those inspiring words. It's appreciated, and thank you for participating today. Angelique?
Thank you, Christian. Let's turn to Judge Ali. Judge Ali, you are the first South Asian appointed as a supervising judge in New York County Civil Court, and for that matter, the first South Asian judge in an administrative role in the state of New York. That's a lot. Can you share with us your journey and maybe some of the challenges that you had to go through as a South Asian attorney in our legal system? And any nuggets about how you overcame them would be amazing.
Thank you, Angelique. Thank you very much for that kind introduction. And thank you, Christian, as well, for your leadership in putting on this program. It does not surprise me, Angelique, that you spearheaded this program in its 4th year. You have been a champion for diversity and inclusion, including in your role as president of the Puerto Rican Bar Association. I did tell you the story, and I'll tell everyone. As a South Asian Muslim, the first bar association I ever joined was the Puerto Rican Bar Association. That has nothing to do with the fact that my wife is Puerto Rican and she's a judge, but kind of. I think we got a 2-for-1 deal. If she signed up, I got in for free, I guess. But thank you all very much. Thank you to Justice Silver and Justice Ogden for your inspirational words. I found myself nodding along with everything you were saying, and I plan to reference a couple of those things in these brief remarks. And a warm greeting and congratulations to the panelists for your participation and acknowledgement as well. So, Angelique, the only friendly amendment I will add to your question is in the and I have this number written down somewhere, in the 357 years that New York State had some version of a court system, in 2020, I was named the supervising judge of New York County Civil Court, making me the first South Asian judge to ever hold any administrative position. So it only took, I guess it was fast, right? It only took 354 years to get to that point. And central to that is this concept of allyship, that it is enough for groups to want to be included, not just diversity, but broad-based diversity, right? Inclusion of all. But it has to do with allyship. That is looking to our friends to help us get to where we need to go. And one of those, and I'll get backwards into my story, but I want to make sure I make this point up front, that I am grateful to Justice Silver in his role as the Deputy Chief Administrative Judge for appointing me the supervising judge of New York County Civil Court. Hopefully I've made him proud in the work I've done. But it took courage to do something that has not been done before. I don't believe, in my personal experience, I have encountered folks who have said, we don't want Asians or we don't want South Asians. I have encountered folks who just didn't think we were around, right? In one of my roles, I am president of the Asian American Judges Association of New York. The first question I get is that a real association? And I say, well, it is, right? We have 61 members, proud, of about 3,100 judges. So we're about 2.5% to 3% of the judiciary. In statistics, that number is statistically irrelevant, right? Because it's at that rounding error. Imagine being part of a group that you are statistically an irrelevant number, and that hurts. It's hard. But our goal is to have diversity in the bench, in our court system, but also support broad-based diversity. That is, cheer on for the inclusion of the Asian American community, but also cheer on when good things are happening to diversify the bench, because there's no other way of putting it that a diverse bench is great for all. I can still remember the day that Justice Karolounis was named the administrative judge, because we were at the Judicial Institute and I was on a panel on summary jury trials, and Judge Karolounis was in the audience. I did not see her leave, but she came back and said, "I'm sorry I left your presentation. I got a phone call." And I said, "Oh, don't worry about it. These things happen." She said, "I'm named the AJ of the 5th. I jumped off the stage to give her a hug. To tell you how impressive that is, I have bad knees. I could have crippled myself. But I said it didn't matter. I'm jumping off the stage because it was fantastic. It meant our judiciary got a little bit more diverse. Our judiciary became that much more greater. It has been my mission since I achieved this role to help others. Justice Ogden, you were speaking to me when you said it's sort of our moral mission to help others to achieve their success. And now this is where, Angelique, I insert my my Bronx credentials, right? You laid out yours, Justice Silver laid out his. What's mine? I'm an immigrant. You know, in the process of running for election, everyone talks about their immigrant connection, right? I'm a child of an immigrant. I live near an immigrant. I know an immigrant. I tell people, look, I'm the OG. I'm the immigrant. I was born out of this country. I was born in Guyana, came here when I was 4 years old. And I lived for 18 years on 170th Street in the Grand Concourse in the Bronx. Went to all public schools when I was there. You know, in the legal community, it wasn't that I felt that I was being excluded. You just felt like, you know, you were someone who didn't belong there. And part of the problem was the South Asian culture, right? If you talk to any Indian person, any South Asian, they'll tell you parents groom their kids to have 3 careers: to be a doctor, to be an engineer, and the third one I don't remember, right? Because we never get to 3. We only stop at 2. So when you want to go into the law, you're sort of like an outlier on that. When I started with the Administration for Children's Services, it was, you know, it was odd to see a South Asian. I was always confused for being Dominican, which is not bad at all. In fact, I pretend to speak some Spanish. The only problem I get is when the conversation continues and I have to confess that I can't keep up. My first job was done out of curiosity for our court system, and I loved it. I then went on to become an assistant corporation counsel trying juvenile delinquency cases. I then went on to become a public defender, where I happened to try juvenile delinquency cases in front of Judge Silver in the Bronx County courts. And this is where I started to really find that folks were not used to, you know, a Muslim or a South Asian. So my name is spelled A-L-L-Y, but it's pronounced Ali. I still remember this day at 100 Center Street, Manhattan Criminal Court. I hear someone yelling out, "Mohammed, Mohammed." And the voice is just yelling out louder and louder because the voice is getting closer to me. And this person grabs me by the arm and says, "Why aren't you responding?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Aren't you Muhammad Ali?" And I was like, "Ooh, very close, close." Not quite there. He happened to be an assigned client I had. And I met this guy, and I thought for months I knew him, but that's what I got. When I was in the bench in the Bronx Criminal Court, I had an ADA. Now, this is a lawyer. I had an ADA refer to me as Judge Shah. Throughout the appearance, Judge Shah. I let it go. You know, like Judge Karolounis said, like Judge Ogden said, sometimes we have to somehow compromise our authentic self just to make the day go by. And how much are we going to let go? But finally, I had enough. I said, "Why do you keep calling me Judge Shah? My name is Judge Ali." He goes, "I'm sorry, Judge. My dentist is Dr. Shah. So I keep getting it confused." This was a professional in an open courtroom. You know, you start to feel bad. One last story, and I'm only telling you the interesting stories. You know, every day is fine. It's just one of these two. When I was in the Bronx, I presided over a trial part and a very busy domestic violence part. And we run the part very fast. And 11 a.m., we always took a break to let the staff have a break, stretch your legs. 11 a.m. religiously. I had a defense attorney ask me, "Judge, at 11, before you take your break, can you squeeze in my case before you take your prayer break?" And I said, "Why would you think I take a prayer break?" "Well, aren't you Muslim? Don't you go in the back and pray at 11? And I looked at the guy and I said, "Now, this is a moment where I have to be either authentic and tell him the truth or just go along with it." So I looked at him and said, "We can get your case in before I pray. Come on, get your case in." The reality is I was dieting at that point, and I was having a sandwich in the back and then logging it into my Weight Watchers app. That's what I was doing at 11 a.m. every day. I since discontinued that practice. But this fellow there was no indication that I prayed at 11, but he came up with that point. And to me, I had to decide how much do I want to correct him. And I didn't. I just let it go, right? I've now found that sometimes it's best to correct folks. You know, as a judge now, as a supervising judge, it's my mission to help others become familiar with the court system, have other South Asians and Asians get into roles that lead to the judiciary, like law clerks, court attorneys. Interestingly enough, the Asian American population does better in the appointed process. So I'm happy to hear Judge Silver and Ms. Surratt talk about diversity on the mayor's process. I know that we have lots of judges coming in from the Asian community. So those are the type of things that we deal with. Currently, I am the only only administrative level judge who's South Asian. We still have never had an administrative judge. We've never had an Asian judge in the 3rd or 4th departments, and we never had a judge in the Court of Appeals. And I have to check, but I don't believe we've had a South Asian judge on the 1st or the appellate term to the 1st or 2nd department. So we have achieved success, but there's a long way to go. And hopefully with partnership, with allyship, we will see greater inclusion in our court system and our community. Thank you.
No, thank you, Judge. And when you talk about partnership and, allyship, can you just touch upon that a little bit more? How important it is for everyone to work together, or affinity bars to work together in order to create more diversity in the bench and the bar.
Yeah, it's so important, especially when let me just say it benefits us all across the board. 62 counties, when something great happens, when Judge Ogden was appointed to the 4th all the way in Buffalo, we chaired it in New York City. I know I did, right? So these things happen, right? These are so when we talk about inclusion, we need the help of our friends. Angelique, I could tell you that you and I have talked about how the Latino population also is struggling in representation in our judiciary. So one thing that I do as an Asian, when I advocate for Asians, I say, well, let's not forget about broad-based diversity. Look at who's missing. And I know that all of our partners do the same thing. There's the old saying, if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go together. You have to go together. You have
I love that.
Yeah. I'm actually training for a marathon. And I keep reciting that marathon. Ironically, I'm not going fast or far. So I gotta figure. I have 3 weeks to figure that out. But that's where it is. Like, we can bang our drum, but when our friends bang the drum as well for us, it highlights a position. What Judge Silver did with in the local courts in New York City, there are about 15 supervising judges. That decision could have gone any which way. But with that one decision sparked an interest across the board, because I get folks who send me an email who will pull me aside privately. Publicly, they'll say, no, I'm not interested, or I don't want that. Privately, they pull me aside and say, how did you do it? And I said the one thing, something that Judge Silver will tell you, is that you have to apply. And if you're qualified and you have an interview, make your best case. There's no more shams, or at least under his administration, there's no more shams. If you got the goods, go for it. And that's why I tell people, never negotiate against yourself. We have strong administration now. We did before. We have not now, and just keep going. And when you when you help folks out that way, I think at the end we all come out to be in a much better position.
Thank you. I'm going to turn it over now to Christian.
Thanks, Angelique, and thanks, Judge Ali, for sharing your story. Mr. Small, if I could turn to you, you were the first minority appointed to the position of chief clerk in Kings County. If you'd be so kind to share your journey, including the challenges you faced during your career in the court system and how you overcame them, I think we'd all really appreciate it.
So good evening. I'd first like to thank the committee for including me on this prestigious panel. In particular, Brooklyn's best, Angelique Marino, who we know that she epitomizes what it is to be an attorney and what it is to be a lady. So just like Judge Ali, I am an immigrant. I was born in Barbados, but I came to this country a little later than than Judge Ali. So I was working in a bank. I started doing temp jobs, and then I landed a job with Immigrant Savings Bank. I was working in the bank, and I met this customer. He was a court liaison officer for the city. So he came over to me. I took care of him. He walked off. I saw him going out the door, and then he suddenly turned around, and I saw him coming back in my direction. So I figured, boy, I must have screwed up this guy's transaction. So he came back and he said to me, "You don't plan to work in a bank for the rest of your life." And I said, "I would go wherever God takes me." So he said, "I will show you how to get out of here." And the next time he came back to the bank, he brought an envelope and it was full of all kind of applications. He said, "In this envelope, there are applications for the city, state, and the federal government. Take as many, file as many applications as you can, take as many tests as you can. But my advice to you will be try to get into the court system and you'll be set for life." So I took as many tests, and then I got called for many city departments and stuff, and I got called for the court system. So when I got called for the court system, it was a very low title. It was one of the lowest titles in the court system, and the choice at that point was, do I want to take a pay cut, leave the bank, and come into the court system, or do I want to stay where I am? Plus, I was offered a contingent permanent position, and those of us here that work in the court system understands what a contingent permanent position is. You enjoy the benefits of a permanent position, but you're actually in a position because someone else has taken a promotion, and if that person comes back, then you are out of a job. So I took a contingent permanent position. I took a pay cut, and I came into the system, and I came in at one of the lowest positions. Uh, I started out working in New York County, and then I was offered a permanent position in Brooklyn, but this position was working in the record room, and no one wanted the position. I took it, and I started working in the record room, and I would have all kind of people that work in the court system. They'll come down. I even had one guy that said to me, "This must be the best thing you've ever had in your life." And all I could think in the back of my head is just give me the test. Because one of the reasons I came into the system, the court system too, is that I learned that you can take tests and move up through the ranks. You're not subjected to the whims and fancies of a supervisor. So all I'm thinking in the back of my head, just give me the test. I'm gonna show this guy what I'm made of. So long story short, I started taking tests, and I started moving up through the ranks. And my initial goal was to become a principal court clerk. A principal court clerk at the time, you received your own timesheet. You didn't have to sign in and out. We didn't have Kronos then. And you receive a parking placard. And that was my goal, to become before I retired, I want to become a principal court clerk. But then I started to move through the ranks so quickly. Each test I took, I ended up like in the top 10%. That in 10 years, I went from what was a line 8 to a line 28. So I had already passed that principal court clerk position. So now I'm faced with a choice. What do I want to do with the rest of my career? Do I want to sit around and waste away? And by that time, I was married, and I had a kid. So I went back to school. I finished my undergraduate degree, and then I enrolled in law school. So it was a challenge, having to work during the day and go to school at night while trying to take care of a family. So I became if I could dial back a little, when I became a senior court clerk and I went to the courtroom to work, I'll be sitting at the desk, dressed in a suit and a tie, and attorneys will come right up to the desk and they will say to me, "Where is the clerk?" And there were so many negative things that were said to me, even going to law school. Initially, when I was going to law school, I tried to keep it quiet. I didn't want any of my peers to know that I was going to law school, because you would be ridiculed at that time for going to law school. Even one supervisor said to me that I was going to the dark side. So, so I took the test. I went to law school. I graduated. I passed the bar exam, and then this position opened up here in Kings County for a chief clerk. And I put in for the position at the time. Judge Heinz Radix was the administrative judge in Kings County, and she saw in me the ability to do the job. So I put in for it, and I was eventually offered the job. But I think that this was December will be 13 years that I was a chief clerk. So being the chief clerk has formed a significant part of my career. And I think that one of the main challenges that I have had as the chief clerk is to get people to understand that I'm not in this position because I'm Black. I'm not in this position because I am part of any affirmative action quota. I'm not in this position because of any particular affirmative action program that OCA has, but I'm in this position because I am qualified for the position. And that has been a challenge. The other thing that has been a challenge is getting people to respect and to understand that you know what you're doing. So over time, I've allowed my work to speak for me. I've allowed my work to show. And I think that that's how I have conquered that. But one other issue that I've had too is that being the first minority in the position, other minorities and other people that you've worked with, and in particular minorities, think that any positions that come up, whether they're qualified or not for, that they're entitled to. And that has been a challenge, explaining to them that even though I am a minority, I'm the chief clerk, you have to be qualified and you have to perform your duty.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I think I 100% agree with you. You have to be qualified. You have to be able to do your job, which, Mr. Smalls, you do so incredibly well. I tell everyone that Kings, I know we have an amazing AJ, but everything that happens in Kings County goes well because of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to turn to Ms. Surratt. And hi, Ms. Surratt.
Hello, can you hear me?
There you go. So, everyone, this is the executive director of the Mayor's Advisory Committee on the Judiciary. She has such an incredible job, but she's also has such a journey. She was also an assistant district attorney. And Ayana, could you tell us your journey? And then I'm going to even ask you one more question as part of your journey. Can you share with us all how we can do better? How can we do better in diversity? How can we do better inclusion and equity? I'm turning it over to you.
All right, so I'll be brief, but I want to extend the same sentiments as everyone who preceded me on the panel. So thank you for allowing me to be a part of the conversation. And I, like Mr. Smalls and Judge Ali, I'm also an immigrant, and I'm actually also Guyanese. So my family immigrated and settled in the Bronx. So there are lots of common themes amongst us today. When I was 8 years old, my mom is an educator, is the youngest of 4 children, and my dad is an accountant. So my mom actually started as a teller in a bank, and then made her way to the New York City Department of Education. So she, worked for a very long time as a classroom teacher, and then became an assistant principal at the time she retired after, I think 40 plus years of teaching. So growing up in the Bronx, I was a member of a local church. Service was always a part of our daily life. I twice a week volunteered at the local soup kitchen that was housed in the church, and also participated in monthly food pantries. I also worked in high school as an after-school tutor. So service was ingrained in my upbringing. And so that's sort of what led me to pursue the law. As I got older, I saw it as an opportunity to make a difference. So in addition to personal ambition, again, I said I was the youngest of 4, so I was a bit of an actress, so to speak. You had to do a lot to get attention. And that's how I would say I landed at the DA's office, because I was interested in being a litigator. And I was told by my advanced trial advocacy professor, who was also a judge, that the best way to gain trial experience is to join a local district attorney's office. I also participated in a domestic violence clinic in law school, and just really took to that work. So my time at the DA's office, I think, like, what was my guiding principle, my North Star, was the idea of, you know, searching for the truth, always trying to do right, and the idea of doing justice, and really grappling with what does justice, you know, mean to me. And so after about 15 years at the DA's office, and you know, it's hard work, but it's also good work. But it's work that causes you to ask certain questions, because you're really seeing a lot of individuals whose lives are impacted by failures in other systems: education, housing, employment, and just how poverty is pervasive and has like a deleterious effect on a lot of individuals in our society. And what do we do to help and to make it better? And so I felt, you know, after towards the end of my time at the DA's office, there were just certain questions that began to raise up in me, that the work that I was doing no longer felt satisfying, or that it was making a difference. And so I found exploring those questions, and, you know, taking the opportunity to read and to look at other disciplines, that's what drew me to the Center for Justice at Columbia. And there I worked with individuals who were formerly incarcerated, and also with students who are asking questions, thinking about what you can do to bring about change. What are the different types of policies that can be implemented to sort of address some of these issues that are rooted in sort of the history of this country, a lot, if you will, like sort of the legacy of slavery and its impact even today. And so during my time there, the opportunity to work with the mayor arose, and I accepted it, because I see our work as service, right? What can we do to make the lives better of the people of this great city? And I really took up the mantle of, or the directive in terms of Mayor Adams, of really trying to appoint individuals who reflect the diversity of this great city. And in doing so, and you know, I know that Judge Silver, this is also you know, what he believes. It's, you look for a diversity of ideas and experience. And if that's sort of your guiding principle, if that's the North Star, you will get a diverse bench. And there's, you know, that benefit in diversity. Not everyone, like, difference is something to be celebrated. We're all better when there is, something different. Change is brought about in celebrating difference. It's a pretty boring world if everybody is the same all the time, always. So, that's a little bit of my story and a little bit of sort of what my guiding principles are. And I hope I answered the question.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Attorney Surratt. I so appreciate you joining us today. I also want to say thank you to Judge Silver and Judge Ogden, Judge Karolounis, Judge Ali, and Attorney Smalls. Thank you so much again for joining us on this panel. I'm just going to turn it over to Christian now.
Thanks, Angelique. I just want to say what a great event, and can't thank you enough, Angelique, for spearheading it. You're a fierce and tireless and incredibly effective advocate for not only your clients, but this important initiative of achieving diversity, inclusion in the legal profession. And this was all you. You put together this great group of speakers, and I can't express my appreciation to you enough. I would go on, but in the spirit of time, I am going to now cede the floor to Katie Buckley. She's the co-chair of the diversity committee. Thanks, Katie, for being here.
Thank you, Christian. And thank you to all of our wonderful speakers in our panel. So I'm here for the main reason we're here tonight. For the fourth time this year, we will be giving the Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg Vanguard Award. And this award is given to a trial attorney who has made extraordinary efforts to address and raise awareness about the issues of equity, diversity, and inclusion. As everyone is well aware, Justice Ginsburg was a fervent advocate for equality and a cultural icon in the fight for women's and minority rights. During her time in the Supreme Court, she championed diversity and equality. Her most memorable cases were those that impacted diverse groups. Her legacy is especially important today, and so we honor her and those who continue in her important work. And those include tonight's award recipient, Mr. David Tang. Mr. Tang is a partner at Underberg and Kessler in Rochester, New York. He obtained his JD from Syracuse University College of Law, during which time he was the managing editor of Syracuse Law Review. He interned at the U.S. Department of Justice and at the State Department. He also worked at Harris Beach and White and Case before joining Underberg and Kessler. At Underberg and Kessler, he serves as the chair of both the Healthcare and Creditors' Rights Practice Groups, as the co-chair of the firm's Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Committee, and as a member of the firm's Executive Committee. Mr. Tang was nominated for this award by his managing partner, who described him as committed, passionate, and generous with his time. Please allow me to introduce Mr. Thomas Nab to tell you a little bit more about Mr. Tang and why he is so deserving of this award.
Thank you. It's as much of an honor to introduce David, my friend David, as it was to nominate him for this prestigious award. And as much as David is a very fine lawyer, and he really is, he's even a better person. And he's got a very busy practice, and he's a loving husband and father of 2 teenagers. He's a good son to his parents. He's a valuable member of the firm's management committee, including as a co-chair of the diversity group. And he's so deeply involved in the community, as you heard. And I'm not going to read his CV because we're running up on our deadline here, and it would take about a half an hour. But very committed. And so I wrote down some things that I would say that describe David. He's got boundless energy, highly enthusiastic, very thoughtful. He's creative, he's passionate, and he really cares. He cares about everybody in our firm, whatever their position, and he goes out of his way to make sure people know that they're valued. And he brings that same commitment to his work in the community and his commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion goals in our firm and throughout the whole region and wherever he is. So I can't say enough about him as a fine person who's committed to do what's necessary in our community. And so I just want to say congratulations to David.
Thank you, Tom. And thank you for your kind words. It is a treat to be law partners with you. And thank you. Thank you to the wonderful panel for sharing your experiences with us today. For those of you who may not know, I was born and raised in Rochester, New York, by two scientists who immigrated from China when their families, who were landowners, were on the wrong side of politics in the late 1940s. In Rochester, we do not have a law school. We do, however, have lawyers who are dedicated and volunteer to recruit talented law students of diverse backgrounds from around the country to come here. In the before times, before lawyers Zoomed, it was not unusual to have law students in person interviewing on a snowy Saturday morning downtown. And it was a rite of passage for the aspiring lawyer to interview in Rochester in February and still want to return in the summer. It's really quite a treat to live and work in my hometown in a community where the law firms and the law departments and the managing partners remain fully committed to placing diversity clerks with paid summer positions. A former diversity clerk has become a good friend. Early on in his first summer, I served as a summer associate mentor while also wearing the hat as the firm's captain of the Lawyers League softball team. That first summer, we covered some of the basics, taking assignments, building time, research and writing. What's remarkable to me is that a few years later, we tried a case together. I had moved firms. I was happily practicing with Underberg and Kessler. We represented different parties in different co-defendants in a partnership dispute in commercial part in Monroe Supreme. And it was a thrill to conduct a trial with him. I will always remember the late evening conference room discussions over debating over pizza, how we were going to get the proof to go in the right way. And I have the Roy King Diversity Clerkship Program to thank for that trial experience with the clerkship alum and those fond memories. If you are engaged in or supporting equity or inclusion work, I celebrate your work and I gently challenge you to keep up the efforts. Please find ways to overcome any bouts of diversity fatigue. Do encourage your colleagues to support the work that you're doing that we know is worth continuing. To quote the late, great Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, also a Cornell alum, fight for the things that you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you. And I think that's a close corollary to Judge Ogden's wonderful motto, lift as you climb. So before I close, I want to thank my colleagues at the firm. Thanks for being here, if you're still here. It is a privilege to work with you every day. A big thank you to Christian and Katie and Gina and the members of the trial lawyer section for this recognition. It is humbling to receive the special award, and I'm so pleased to be recognized in this way. Last, I wish to dedicate this award, and I got this wonderful thing that came in the mail, and thank you again to the trial lawyers section. Some special people, my parents, Frank and Loretta, both were trained as scientists. They taught at the University of Rochester. Mom taught me to listen. Dad would take me out on the weekends to the library, and we'd both find something interesting to read. They were patient, creative, nurturing. They taught me good attention to detail, and all of those things that I learned from them helped me to be the lawyer I am today. So thank you, Mom and Dad. Thank you all.
Thank you, David, and congratulations. Really happy you picked that line too from Justice Ginsburg, because it happens to be hanging on the walls of both my daughters. So
Fantastic.
that's, yeah. Thank you everybody for being here. I'm sorry we're a little bit over, but it was certainly for a good cause. We really appreciate everybody's efforts that they put into this program. Hope to see you on November 4th at the Equinox in Vermont and November 30th in Hammock Beach, Florida. Have a good night, everybody, and thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
On behalf of the New York State Bar Association, I would like to thank our panelists for taking the time out of their busy schedules to help make this program possible. I also want to thank our attendees for joining us today. And I would like to congratulate Mr. David Tang on receiving the Trial Lawyers Section 4th Annual Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg Vanguard Award. This concludes the program. Please be sure to return to your learning dashboard and enter the verification codes for the program to receive your CLE certificate. While you're at the learning dashboard, please also take a moment to fill out the evaluation form for today. We appreciate your feedback and take it all into consideration when planning future programs. Instructions on how to access your learning dashboard are available in the webinar information email that you received prior to this program. You may also print a copy of the MCLE verification form and submit it to registrar@nisba.org to receive your MCLE credit. Thank you again for choosing the New York State Bar Association MCLE programs. Have a fantastic evening.